A low harmonic hum trembles through the night air, carried on the sharp wind slicing across the deck of a Ukrainian observation vessel drifting in the northern Black Sea. The sea is restless, a rolling mass of dark water and cold mist. Every wave crest glowing faintly under a muted moon. Spray slaps the hull in rhythmic bursts as the ship's high-gain antenna vibrates like a tuning fork struck by nature itself. Far ahead, 3 Kruk to 7V long-range strike UAVs skim the surface in perfect formation, their black composite frames nearly invisible against the restless water. The drones glide at 145 kilometers per hour, maintaining a dangerously low 24-meter altitude. Below them, 1.8 meter. Waves rise and fall like breathing. Lungs every trough a moment of stealth, every crest a brief betrayal. Their onboard algorithms make constant micro-corrections, shifting ailerons by millimeters, adjusting thrust by fractions of a percent. To the operator watching from the warmth of his command cabin, they appear calm, deliberate, almost alive. He mutters, "Stay low, stay quiet," though the machines respond only to physics, not emotion. Above the sea, a thick fog clings to the water, swirling in unpredictable patterns. Higher still, a temperature inversion traps warmer air beneath a cold ceiling, bending radio waves downward. It's the kind of atmospheric distortion that can turn stealth into exposure in seconds. Tonight, the air is a traitor. Far over the horizon, the Russian Podsolniki. Over the horizon, radar sweeps the sea with long electromagnetic strokes. Operators stare at jittering anomalies on their screens, strange, flickering dots that appear, vanish, then reappear in slightly different positions. Not strong enough to classify, not weak enough to ignore. Suspicion rises. The Kruk to 7Vs react instantly. Their formation widens from 85 meters to 230, reducing the chance of correlated radar returns. Fog becomes their ally again, wrapping around them like shifting camouflage, but the atmosphere continues bending radar waves downward, giving Russian systems a reach they usually lack. Onshore, a Tor M2DT mobile SAM system receives a radar report and snaps to life. Inside its compact cabin, the crew watches as their phased array radar sweeps the coastline and water in syncopated rhythms. A lock briefly flickers, weak, unstable, but real. The Tor fires anyway. A missile ejects from its launch tube at 46 meters per second. Then its booster ignites, shoving it past 850 meters per second in a heartbeat. The trail of fire cuts a bright gash through the fog, but the Kruk doesn't panic. It computes. In less than a second, the drone rolls 37, slips downward into the shadow of a wave trough, and alters its Doppler signature, just enough to confuse the missile's proportional navigation logic. The warhead streaks past, desperately trying to reacquire, then slams into the sea behind it in a white fountain of boiling foam. The operator on the vessel allows himself a tight breath of relief. The coastline begins to rise ahead, broken quarry ridges, uneven cliffs, and jagged stone cutting through the fog like rusted blades. The drones climb to 80 meters to match the terrain, slipping through narrow pockets of thermal shadow. Their infrared optics reveal a patchwork of heat signatures inland, generators humming beneath the metal siding, vent pipes glowing with exhaust, and the faint thermal heartbeat of electrical equipment scattered across the compound. At the center lies a warehouse radiating intense heat, too bright and uneven for a facility supposedly handling nuclear warhead transit materials. Something is wrong, too sloppy, too exposed, but mission logic doesn't allow second guessing. Target marked. A Pantsir S-1 defense system sits nearby, dormant until now. It springs awake as the drones cross into its effective radius, radar spinning with predatory urgency. But every time it locks onto the UAVs, it falters. The drone's low RCS profile, combined with their shifting speed, triggers the Pantsir's notorious angular overshoot error, causing the system to chase echoes rather than actual targets. The lead Kruk ascends sharply to 410 meters, deliberately offering itself as a decoy. The Pantsir takes the bait immediately. 2 missiles roar skyward, corkscrewing through the darkness. The drone nosedives at 4.5 grams, streaking toward the treetops. The missiles try to follow, but the steep angle forces them to bleed energy too quickly. Their guidance fins overcompensate, lose coherence, and both warheads detonate midair in a self-inflicted spectacle of wasted firepower. The last drones push deeper inland, crosswind spattering them at 11 meters per second. Their slender wings bend, slightly an intentional design feature, preventing structural resonance. Thermal vision sharpens. The glowing warehouse is now joined by the unmistakable heat flare of an idling fuel truck, parked far too close. The operator tightens his jaw. He arms chain fuse mode a hardened target, setting where the warhead waits to explode until it senses structural penetration. Designed for bunkers, perfect for sloppy Russian construction. The drones align. Their descent stabilizes. Every onboard system sharpens. The strike run begins. The inland landscape shifts as the drones slip deeper into Russian territory, leaving behind the fog-drenched coastline for a harsher, more angular terrain. What lies beneath them now is a collage of forgotten industrial scars abandoned. Quarry pits, fractured concrete slabs, rusted cranes frozen mid-collapse, and scattered storage containers half swallowed by the earth. The cold night air curls in thin streams around the Krok-Du 7BS as they glide low and silent, their composite wings flexing gently with each crosswind. Every kilometer forward brings them into a more complex battlefield of natural cover, broken structures, and overlapping fields of radar. The operator watches from his dimly lit command station, leaning forward as more data floods his screens. The remaining strike drones fly with unwavering precision, their infrared feeds depicting a terrain riddled with both danger and opportunity. Hot spots leap from the thermal display, engine blocks cooling unevenly, generators flickering with heat stress. The silhouettes of guards, patrolling lazily without the faintest idea of what is approaching. The one drone that rose to a high-altitude vantage point circles above them, acting as both scout and silent chronicler. It homes in on heat blooms in radar patterns, feeding a constant stream of intelligence to its lower-altitude siblings. Then, in the distance, a new shape emerges, blocky, symmetrical, and mistakably militarized. A Buchem battery lies nestled in the shadow of a shallow ridge. Its camouflaging mesh is layered with thermal dampening polymers designed to scatter heat signatures, making the vehicles beneath appear like meaningless lumps of earth. But as its radar mass rises to full extension, the system betrays itself. The sudden thermal spike, a hot line of electrical activity, cuts through the night like a flare for the Krok sensors. It's as bright as a scream. The Buk springs alive. Its search radar begins sweeping in ruthless arcs. Its precision tuned for mid-altitude aircraft, cruise missiles, and jets flying with predictable signatures. But tonight, the battlefield presents something far stranger. The drone's low altitude, small radar cross-section, and erratic approach vector confuse the targeting algorithms. The system attempts to establish a coherent lock, loses it, finds it again, then hesitates. Inside the cabin, Russian operators lean over their consoles, smacking malfunctioning screens and blaming the cold, the humidity, or the machine, anything but themselves. But in war, hesitation is often followed by aggression. The Buk fires. The missile erupts from its rail with violent, bone-rattling force, the launch shock shuddering through the forest floor. It accelerates almost instantly to more than 1,200 meters per second, carving a white-hot lance upward into the night. Guidance fins slice at the air, actively hunting for the drones, but the logic inside the missile is calibrated for fast-moving jet targets traveling hundreds of meters per second. These drones, cruising silently at barely a third of that speed, confuse the Doppler calculations. The missile closes distance far too rapidly, interprets the near-zero change in relative movement as a sign that the target has already passed overhead, and panics. Its proximity fuse detonates early. A massive, thunderous airburst blossoms above the tree line, illuminating the valley in golden light. Shockwaves ripple outward, rattling branches and sending frightened birds spiraling into the sky. A few leaves drip down in the aftermath, glowing faintly in the dying embers of the explosion. The Krok drones pass beneath the chaos as though gliding under a burning halo. The operator releases a thin breath. Beautiful waste of taxpayer money. He mutters dryly. The valley ahead opens into a multi-layered compound of warehouses, fuel trucks, outdated generators, and guard posts assembled with more confidence than competence. The largest warehouse pulses with HEPAR 2, much for a facility meant to handle nuclear transit components. The infrared display shows irregular hot patches across the exterior, suggesting overworked machinery or poorly insulated storage. Whatever the Russians intended here, subtlety wasn't part of it. The drones adjust their formation automatically, shifting into a delta pattern, a tactical spread that complicates entire triangulation. One approaches slightly from the west, the other from the east, both still hugging the terrain to stay beneath radar sweeps. The Overwatch drone climbs even higher, preparing to observe the strike angle and record the aftermath. On the ground, a couple of guards wander in loose patterns. One stops to light a cigarette. The tiny flare of the lighter briefly blinds the Pantsir S1's infrared. Fail-safe mode, a small but textbook example of how human habits sabotage even the best technology. For several seconds, the entire defense grid loses a fallback sensor, simply because a soldier wanted nicotine. The strike drones descend to 61 meters. Weaving through the wind bursts, their slender frames flex slightly with each gust, intentional, engineered flexibility, preventing structural resonance from building at low altitudes. Their warheads armed with a soft, almost imperceptible internal click. 21 kilograms of tandem charge penetrator logic weights inside each nose cone, analyzing impact vectors and preparing to punch through reinforced walls before detonating.
The compound expands across the Thermal display like a feverish map of heat and motion. The warehouse burns brightest an uneven patchwork of hot seams, overworked machinery, and sloppy insulation. Even from altitude, the Crook to 7V drones can see the chaos building. Guards move in confused lines, some shouting, some running, none looking upward. They expect trouble from the ground, not from the sky. The drones descend smoothly, wings flexing against shifting crosswinds. Their internal gyroscopes hold them steady, their processors running millions of calculations with each passing second. The operator watches in silence, fingertips hovering over his interface. His pulse remains steady. The drones do not feel tension, but he does just enough to remind him he's human. Down below, the compound's defenders panic. Someone finally hits an alarm, and a distorted wail echoes across the facility. A soldier sprints toward the Pantsir S1, but the system is still recovering from its earlier tracking failure. Its optics jitter, unable to process clean thermal locks. By the time it cycles past its error state, the drones have already committed to their strike vectors. The first drone angles toward the eastern wall of the warehouse. Its tandem penetrator warhead arms itself, fuse logic calibrating to detonate deep inside the structure. The second drone aligns with the idling fuel truck, a volatile ignition point, waiting to erupt. The operator gives the authorization with a single tap. The first UAV dives, slicing through the night. Its penetrator tip punches straight through the warehouse wall, tearing through concrete ribs before disappearing into the shadows within. One heartbeat later, the warhead detonates. The explosion bursts outward, turning the structure into a violent bloom of fire and debris. The shockwave rolls across the yard, scattering equipment and sending guards diving for cover. The second drone hits the fuel truck half a second later. The resulting explosion dwarfs the first, an incandescent fireball that engulfs half the compound, flipping vehicles and ripping the roof off nearby storage units. A rising column of black smoke climbs into the sky, lit from below by churning flames. As the fire spreads, the truth becomes visible. Dozens of cylindrical storage tubes lie scattered across the warehouse. Four lightweight, hollow, and completely empty. No nuclear cores, no sensitive material, just decoys stacked like theater props. It was a fake, a distraction, a shell game. But destruction is still disruption. Russia will lose time, resources, and certainty. The surviving drone circles once, records the inferno, then turns back toward the sea. The mission is complete.